It's Katina with Atomica Nuclei Tin Jewelry, and today's video is a viewer request. Irma Valoria Donito asks, can you make a video where you use a can of Arizona tea and show us how we can thicken the tin to make a nice pair of earrings? Well, Irma, I hope I answer some questions and give you some inspiration so you can start working with tin, or if you want to start working with aluminum. Okay, and it's interesting that you asked that because I've been making jewelry for several years, but a little over 5 years ago, somebody asked me to make some earrings out of a beer can, which makes total sense because there are a lot of different liquor cans that have some fabulous designs on them. So if you're wanting to utilize aluminum in your jewelry design, or if you want it to enhance your tin, that's a totally up to you, and it's a great, they have great patterns on these cans. For me, when I was working with the aluminum, I found that it was just a little too flimsy, and it didn't have enough substance for me. But they're popular. There's a market for items made from cans. You can go on Etsy and see all kinds of beautiful earrings and pendants and stuff made from aluminum cans. Actually, the aluminum can was my gateway into tin, because my thought was, okay, this is really thin and kind of flimsy. Do they make any kind of jewelry out of tin? And I did one Pinterest search and was found that yes, they do. And so I was like, game on. And so for the past 5 years, tin is what I've been focusing my creations on. So the good thing about aluminum cans versus tin is you don't have to have a lot of heavy duty tools. So for tin, I recommend you guys getting a big pair of metal shears, like to dismantle the tin. But if you're going to work with aluminum, a regular pair of house scissors are all you need, because you can cut just fine with just a regular pair of scissors. You just gotta make sure that they're sharp, but you don't need anything that's special, okay? And we'll get to why this can is already halfway dismantled here in a minute. But you can just cut out what piece that you want to work with, okay? So when you're working with aluminum, all of your disc cutters, your heavy duty disc cutters, you'll want to not use those. Chances are your tin is just going to get caught up in here because it's just too thin, and you'll end up maybe even have to take apart your disc cutter to get everything out. It's not going to give you a good cut. So what you can use, though, are these nifty little things. So this is thin enough to where anything you can cut with paper, you can cut with aluminum. Okay, so I'm going to take my glove off here and show you. So this is just, a hole punch, or paper punch, and you can just line up. Line that up in there. Okay, get it to where you want it. Pop it out, and there you are. So there you have it. There's your little circle, and it's very easy. These come in a whole ton of different shapes and sizes, and Fiskars brand and Hobby Lobby brand, and everybody makes these days. And so it'd be very easy to pop out some of these and either glue an earring back to them, or link them together to make dangle earrings. You still want to sand the edges to make sure that they're not sharp, but even when they come out of the little cutters, they're not too sharp as it is. So I use 400 grit sandpaper from the automotive section. On these, you could probably even use just like a fingernail file. But yeah, so this is a great idea. Another idea is to use your Sizzix cutters. So you can go online and find the Sizzix brand, or on Etsy and eBay. You can also find the Chinese brands. There are various ones. You just want to make sure that when you're ordering, you choose a Sizzix compatible, okay? Because some of them are also made as leather punches, and you don't want that. All right, so I went ahead and ran this little heart through on the Sizzix and cut him out. Okay, so we have him. And then we're gonna get to what I did earlier and had to restart the video for. So I also used a Sizzix, this is a movers and shapers. And so I punched out the teardrop on here. And then I thought, oh, I just went to Hobby Lobby and bought these texture embossing folders from Sizzix. And I ran this guy through there. And what you can't see, or maybe you can, is that the texture impressions gives too deep an impression on aluminum, and it actually punched little holes in here. Now, if you're going to layer this piece, then that's fine. But if you're wanting it as a standalone, you're going to have sharp edges in the back. And that's probably not what you want. You could flatten it again, running it through your Big Kick. But I just want to, put that out there that if you're using a embossing folder that has a really deep impression, like a 3D, then you probably want to avoid it or layer your tin or your aluminum piece with that. Okay. So one of the easiest things is the simple embossing folders. This is a Cuttlebug and this is a basic basket weave, okay? And so what I would do is make sure that your edges are nice and smooth. That Sizzix punched this hard out, and it really punched it pretty clean. The edges are really not... they didn't need to be sanded very much. Okay, so you can just lay this in your embossing folder, make your sandwich with your 2 embossing plates, and then on top of your bigger plate, and run it through your Big Kick. Okay, and unlike when you're trying to cut out your shapes here, so when you have your tin piece on top of here and you run it through your Big Kick, you want to be sure that you're doing this one direction one time. If you try to go back, a lot of times your tin will shift a little bit and you'll get a double cut, and then your proportions will be off, and you don't want that. Okay, so for the cut, you do one direction, one time, and for your emboss, you can do it as many times as you want, because you just want to be sure that you get an impression. Okay, so now you can see with this little basket weave design on there, that it gave it some substance. Like, it's not as flimsy as what it was, okay? And it gave it a little bit of texture to kind of alter it, so you're not quite for sure if that was an Arizona tea can or not. But yes, so you could put a hole in this and string this up as earrings, okay? Or what I would recommend is getting a thicker piece of tin like this. This is just one that I had sitting around, and it's just a basic black tin. Now, I did emboss that design on there. So you could take your tin that you have cut out. Say we wanted to use this, and actually that doesn't look too bad. So you could punch some holes and rivet this on here. I don't use glue but you could put some E6000 or 2-part epoxy on here and glue it in place as well. It's totally acceptable. I just use cold connections versus glue. It's a personal preference. There's nothing wrong with gluing. Just make sure that you are using like a 2-part epoxy, or E6000 does well too. And you know, put it on there. And then if I were using glue, I would definitely get a couple of clothespins and hold that in place until I knew it was good and dry. Okay. Now, if I were making a cold connection, I would be sure, I'd probably put a piece of double-sided tape under this while I measured and punched my holes to make sure that they were in the right spots. And then before I finished the cold connections, I'd peel that double-sided tape off, and your holes would already then be lined up, okay? So those are some ideas for, you know, utilizing the really pretty designs that you find on aluminum cans. I mean, people have offered me some really beautiful aluminum cans, and I'm like, oh, but I don't know what I do, because I just usually use the regular tin, and I have enough of those given to me that I feel like I'm in a good spot. We'll do these here. Let me get a different embossing folder real quick. And as far as embossing folders, when you're trying to get something, okay, this is a good example. So if you're going to use an embossing folder, this one just happens to have some, like, I don't know if it's snow up there, dots, whatever, and some snowflakes. Okay, the thing to think about is that if there is a lot of room between the design, that's not going to work hardened as much as if you used a more dense part. Okay, now remember, don't use as dense as the 3D embossing folders for aluminum. You can totally use these on tin, totally. Okay, but we'll use these little circles here, and if you put them up close, that's where you want it. If you would to put it right down here, it's not going to work harden it as much, and then you'll still have a little flimsier piece of tin. Okay, so we'll put those in there. Let me move those over a little bit. Make sure we get as many dots on there as we can. All right. All right. Do that a couple times. Come back. Open it up and see. And it does. It does. When you use the embossing folders with the aluminum, it does give it a little bit more substance. They're not as bendy as They're not as bendy as what they are when it's just the aluminum. Okay. Now, you can, like I said, glue just an earring back on there. These would be cute linked together like that. You could put them behind another, piece of tin like this, like I've done there, layer it, glue it, or cold connect it. But I hope this answers some questions. If not, ask them. I'll answer them. And I hope you guys have a really happy Halloween, because it's in just a couple days. And hopefully I can make another video soon. I know this one was a long time in the making, but I've been pretty busy with shows, trying to get the holidays up and going out of the way. But anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and have a great